This is Sean with Your Work, Your Success. I've spent quite a few of the episodes already in this channel teaching you how to learn how to learn. And you might be wondering what's so important about it. Why am I so passionate about that? Why am I leading with that, putting all that content up front? It's because for the past 40 years, I've experienced the benefits of it. I've experienced the benefits both in my two careers and in all my hobbies and every other aspect of my life. That learning knowledge is really good for you. Learning knowledge is a great benefit to you. Usually, when you start learning something new, it's all wax on, wax off. Do it this way, don't do it another way. Turn the key this way, then drive the car. This is how you use the saw. This is how you program the computer. This is how you do your taxes. This is how you run the drill. Whatever. It's usually just that. Basic skills are taught to us that way. But if you're like me, and if you're wired up like me at all, then you kind of want to know how things work. Why does it work this way? When I turn the key, why do I get the result that I get? And why, when I turn the key, sometimes I don't get the result I expect? With that, I bring you the concept of foundational knowledge, which is what this episode's all about. So a skill is knowing that when I turn the key in the ignition, that the engine revs up and I can put the car in drive and drive forward. Foundational knowledge is knowing that when I turn the key, it engages the starter, which turns the engine over, which allows gas vapor to go into the cylinder, which can then be ignited by the spark plug, and on and on and on. So now I know when I turn the key and it doesn't work, something in that chain didn't work. I don't just have to sit there going, uh-oh, now what? In the Army, we learned how to use our rifles pretty fast, pretty early on in our training. This probably doesn't surprise you. Of course you're going to learn how to use your rifle in the Army. But what might surprise you is the order that we learn things in. First thing you learn on any weapon is how to be safe with it, how to handle it safely. Then you learn how to take it apart, put it back together, how to clean it. Okay. And then you learn how to load it and unload it. So far so good, right? It all kind of makes sense. And then you learn a class called mechanism. And what mechanism shows you how the weapon does what it does. And back when I was learning, this is what we would use. We'd use these cutout weapons, and it was an actual weapon, but they'd cut holes in it to show you how all the parts move inside. I think they teach it with videos now, but that's what we had back then. So when I was a young soldier, first learning this, I'm thinking, now why do I want to learn this? Why do I need to learn this mechanism? Even though I'm a guy who likes to understand how things work, really, all I wanted to be able to do was shoot the thing. I didn't want to be able to build it. But the reason you learn mechanism as that class in that order is because the next class is to teach you what to do when the weapon doesn't work, when it doesn't operate when it doesn't operate properly, the way you expect it to work. Now, you really don't have to learn mechanism. You could just memorize all the skills. And because really with every weapon, they have something called the immediate action and stoppages, or the IA and stoppages. And the immediate action is always the same thing. Usually you turn the weapon onto the side and you look at the position of the bolt, and then that tells you what steps you need to do next, and it's 3 or 4 different choices you have. But what learning the mechanism does is when those things don't quite work, or you keep getting the same problem over and over again, you go, this thing has happened the last 3 times I've fired, and maybe I need to clean it, and maybe I need to pay attention to this little groove in here or something like that, because it normally shouldn't happen that way. So that's what foundational knowledge gives you. It gives you that ability to solve problems that are a little bit outside the ordinary. And that's why I want you to learn foundational knowledge. Because sometimes you've learned a skill and you've got maybe a checklist and you get to step 16 And step 16 doesn't do what it's supposed to do in order to prepare you for step 17. Well, now what? I used to teach first aid the same way in the Army. Now you can teach, in fact, when I was teaching first aid, I would tell the troops, look, all we're doing is the IA and stoppages of the human body. You take a look at the casualty, at the body, and you say, bodies don't normally do that, so I'll make it do the right thing. When I look at a body and I say, well, normally people breathe in and out of their mouths, or in and out of their lungs. This one's not doing that, so I'm going to make air go in and out of his lungs. Or normally blood stays inside of a body. This one's got blood coming out of his body. So I have to take steps. I'll put a bandage on to make sure that blood stays in the body. Things like that. But I would also teach the foundational knowledge, because I learned that really what happens with blood is the heart pumps it out at high pressure, sends it by the lungs where it picks up oxygen, goes out to the rest of the body through arteries, comes back through veins after it's picked up a whole bunch of carbon dioxide with slightly lower pressure, and then it continues on its cycle. So now I know, let's see, I put a bandage on, but this one's spurting blood. Well, this is not normal. I have to do something else. I have to maybe put a tourniquet on for this one, because I understood the foundational knowledge of it. A person armed with foundational knowledge is more valuable. And if you can create more value, well, go back and watch episode 7 to see what that means to you and your success. But if I can boil everything down to a checklist that never fails, well, then I can hire somebody a lot cheaper than you to do it. Now, checklists are great. Pilots use them. But we don't just go haul some guy off the street and say, here, fly the plane. Here's the checklist. We don't do that. Of course we don't. Because sometimes the checklist doesn't work quite right. Sometimes other factors come into play and we go, uh-oh, I've got to do something else. Go watch the movie Sully with starring Tom Hanks. Really great example of that in this. That they got to a certain step and said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this, because if we do that, we're going to crash the plane. And it's the same thing with every aspect of your life. Like I said, if I can have a checklist that is never fails, then I can get somebody really cheap to do it. But if there are problems that only you can solve because you've got some foundational knowledge, you can say, you know what, this normally did that thing, but now it's not doing that. I can fix it. That's where you become more valuable. Now, you don't have to be knowledgeable about everything. The reason I got an iPhone is because I didn't want to have to think about it. I didn't want to have to think about my personal electronics the way I do about my electronics at work. So the iPhone, there's tons and tons of things you can do. I can do like that much on the iPhone because that's all that's important to me. I don't care to do all the other stuff. No assignment this week. I want this idea of foundational knowledge to percolate in your head a little bit. Next time I give you an assignment, I want you to get into the habit of thinking, why do I do it this way and not that way? Do that all the time. Subscribe to the channel so you get all the episodes. This is your work, your success.